and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you've joined us for the Life Sciences Investor Forum. Our next presentation of the day is from Prostatype Genomics. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Fredrik Rickman, Chief Executive Officer of Prostatype Genomics, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol PGABF and on Nasdaq First North under the symbol PROGEN. Welcome, Fredrik.
Thank you very much, Lily. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone attending this meeting, depending on where you are in the US or perhaps outside USA as well. It's really great to have this exciting opportunity to introduce you all to Prostatype Genomics. I'm actually quite confident that you will also find it quite interesting. I'm talking to you from Sweden today. Actually, I just arrived from Boston in the US a couple of hours ago. So after a fantastic visit over there. So I hope I will not fall asleep, of course. But if I look a little bit tired, then you have the explanation anyhow. Great. As mentioned, my name is Fredrik Rickman. I'm the CEO of the company. We have been listed on the Nasdaq list since 2021 and on the OTCQB since this year, actually, earlier this year. Prostatype Genomics is originally, as you can see in the bottom left corner of this slide, a spin-off from Karolinska Institute. And we are active in the exciting field and very interesting field of prostate cancer. And moving on, just to give you a short introduction, very brief introduction to prostate cancer. I'm sure that many of you knows quite a lot about this therapeutic area. It is the most common form of cancer among men in USA and Western Europe. And we have about 1.5 million newly diagnosed patients per year. The global market is estimated to be around $1 billion annually. And Prostatype, the product that we actually provide, is a genetic test. And the purpose of Prostatype is to help the physician and the patient to feel more confident in the treatment decision. So what we actually provide is a better and more accurate stratification of the patient's risk for when it comes to his prostate cancer. In general, you can say that there are 3 different levels of risk after a diagnosis, and that is low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk. But quite often, patients get misclassified. So what we bring to the doctor and the physician and the patient and healthcare systems is that we really, via our precision medicine characteristic, helps the healthcare system to avoid undertreatment or overtreatment of the patient. Undertreatment is not good, obviously, as the risk for the patient passing away or dying from prostate cancer is pretty high or very high. But the main challenge in the prostate cancer field is that as the current tools used to classify the patients, they're quite old and they are quite unspecific. It means that we have a situation where overtreatment is very common, too common. And the backside of overtreatment of prostate cancer, that's really the side effects. Approximately 50% of all the patients, they do experience impotence, and about 20-25% they unfortunately get incontinent. after a radical treatment. So it's very important to make sure that once you have the diagnosis, you need to understand what is the prognosis for this patient. Is it a low risk, is it an intermediate risk, or is it a high risk? Because that classification decides how to treat or if to treat the patient at all. So moving to the middle and to the right side of this slide, a very short introduction of Prostatype. As mentioned, it's a genetic test. We are using the PCR technique, which is an old and well-established technique at laboratories around the world. So it's not a really complicated product from that point of view. Where we have our value is in the algorithms we have developed, and of course all the information of patients that we possess, all the databases we possess. So there are hundreds of companies and products claiming that they are in the precision medicine field. I am also claiming that, and Prostatype is actually a very good example of a modern precision medicine prognostic biomarker. It has taken some time for us to come to where we are today. We have laid a very solid and comprehensive foundation, and Prostatype is developed, ready. Well, it's actually already commercialized. We have just started in the US, and in Europe, we have been going on for now 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years. So what this it's a complicated slide, but it's more an example to inform you that we are at the bottom right end of this corner when it comes to technical risk. We are in possession of all regulatory. When we have passed all regulatory processes, we have passed all the marketing regulatory processes. So the product is in clinical use already today in Europe as well as in the USA. And of course, as you all know, it takes time to develop a product, and there are a lot of costs associated with this development. And for your information, which I believe you think is of interest, is that we have taken all of the heavy investments in this company already. So we focus now solely, more or less, on the commercial side and the introduction of Prostatype, mainly in the USA, as there are fundamental differences in the market characteristics between the US and Europe. If we start with the USA, which is our focus market, there is an established Medicare reimbursement already in place. You see the amount on the screen. And prognostic biomarkers are also reimbursed by the private insurance companies. Furthermore, and what is important, regardless of company or regardless of product, is if the product or product field is included in national guidelines, which it is in the USA. The NCCN guidelines includes prognostic biomarkers in their clinical recommendations to doctors. And as you can see on this slide as well, there is a huge experience of clinical use of these kind of products that Prostatype represents. To the contrary, I mean, Europe and Asia is completely different. It's no reimbursement in place. There is no inclusion in clinical guidelines and a very low level of clinical experience. So we initially launched Prostatype in Europe. We are still active in Europe in selected countries, but pretty quickly we understood that we should turn our attention to the US market, mainly based on the fact that the infrastructure in the US already is in place. And with the infrastructure, I then mean the reimbursement and inclusion in clinical guidelines. And looking at the US a bit more in detail, the market size today is just short of $400 million. Potential market is just short of $900 million annually. market penetration then comes to approximately 40%, and the market is projected to double by 2040. So there's a nice growth rate. We get older and older, the population in the US as well as in Europe, and as prostate cancer is an age-specific form of cancer, obviously the number of patients will also increase. So the latest big thing that has happened to us happened today. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I arrived from Boston to Sweden. Absolutely not. But we were today approved our validation study that we have performed in the USA at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles is published. Not only accepted, it is actually it's going live today. And we have had the great privilege of working together with one of the leading urologists in USA, Professor Stephen Friedland. And as mentioned, he is based in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai. So we are very happy for this. Great results from the study as well. I will try not to get too technical here, but if we start at the bottom left corner, you can see that the p-values are looking extremely good. We are very proud and not surprised, but we are still proud of the results. This is not the only study, of course, we have published in Prostatype Genomics. We have other studies from other parts of the world as well. And what you can see from the chart is a wonderful separation between high-risk patients, intermediate patients, intermediate risk patients, and also the low-risk patients. I do appreciate it could be a little bit difficult to read what it says here, but the results are really, really good. All patients that died from prostate cancer within 10 years from diagnosis were also identified by Prostatype as high-risk patients, and also all patients that we classified as low risk did not die from prostate cancer within 10 years from their diagnosis. So we are very happy with this. It's a huge step forward for us, and it's, of course, from a commercial point of view, it is important when it comes to our US launch of Prostatype. So good results. And when it comes to the USA, we have come a long, long way also here. Again, taken the majority of the costs associated with launching a product on the US market. We have had a subsidiary in USA since 2022. And naturally, we have a local organization. And I will not go through all these blocks on this screen, but it's important to underline that our product is already in clinical use in the US, and the feedback we receive from urologists are really, really positive. So we are now at the final stages of receiving Medicare reimbursement. We have been in contact with Medicare for approximately 1 year. It's been a fantastic dialogue this far. Usually it takes around 1 year for a product to be approved by Medicare. And we have managed to continuously answer all the questions they have had. And I had the great pleasure of meeting representatives from Medicare as late as yesterday, actually. And I have reason to be, or we have reason to be optimistic that we will be covered by this insurance plan within a very short period of time. So this is the final step, so to speak, before we launch for real in the US. And we have decided to launch by ourselves, by Prostatype Genomics. And the reason for this is that the Medicare approval obviously is nationwide. And Medicare, I mention Medicare because they are very important when it comes to prostate cancer. Approximately 60% of all diagnosed patients are covered by Medicare. So once we get that approval, it will also help us when it comes to the private insurance companies, whom, by the way, we already have started to invoice on the US market. So we expect to receive revenue from the private insurance companies pretty soon here. So we will launch ourselves initially in selected states. We will, of course, make sure that any prostate cancer patient in the US, regardless of where he might live, will have access and possibility to also use Prostatype. That goes without further saying, of course. And the reason for this, and after many discussions internally at Prostatype Genomics, is should we do this on our own or should we partner up with a commercial partner? And as you all know, different companies do take different positions. And we have had during these years, as late as yesterday actually, numbers of inquiries and interest in collaborating with Prostatype Genomics. But and of course, in situations like this, you have really to understand and decide what is the optimal partner and what is the optimal timing of entering a partnership. What you do know is that the partnership has a negative impact on your revenue. And of course, once you launch, once the sales starts to pick up, your negotiation position and the attractiveness strengthens over time, of course. So we will launch Prostatype under our own flag, so to speak. We will do it by ourselves. Everything is in place with laboratory partner, with billing partners, and all the regulatory sales and marketing approvals are in place. However, there could be other considerations for I should also say that. Obviously, we are not naive. We do understand that sooner or later, we need and we want to enter into a partnership. Once the right partner, according to our judgment, is showing up, and that the partnership is good in the best interest of the company and the shareholders, of course. So this could take 6 months, it can take 12 months, it could take 18 months. We really don't know. We're just focusing right now on building our US organization, which not will be huge initially, but we will do it in our way. And we are pretty confident in that we're taking the right decision here, as we have experience from launching products on the US market previously. However, there could be other considerations when it comes to commercialization of new products from Prostatype Genomics. If you look at this slide, which I am aware it's a little bit complicated, my bad. But if we let the red bar in the middle describe the treatment decision, Prostatype is obviously for use prior to the treatment decision in order to evaluate the risk and in order to put the patient in the right risk group. And in the USA, there are 3 different clinical questions that are of importance to the doctor. You see them in green here. It's risk of dying from prostate cancer, it's the risk of developing metastasis, or it's the risk of adverse pathology. That's the same clinical questions in Europe, by the way. But in the US, we have come further when it comes to the clinical documentation of these 3 so-called endpoints. What we have figured out, or found out, I should say, via clinical trials, is that Prostatype also can be used post-treatment. Because just as when you treat a patient via surgery or via radiation, it doesn't necessarily mean that the risk is over for the patient. And the main question for the clinician is to understand what is the risk that the patient's PSA level relapses. Once you take out the prostate, the PSA level should, in the best of worlds, become zero, because you don't have any prostate left. However, once you perform the surgery and or the radiation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have managed to kill all the cancer cells. And that brings you to the next question. What do I do if the patient suffers from a relapse? And what we can do with Prostatype, already developed to the left of this red bar, is that we can utilize the experiences we have from Prostatype to also enter the post-treatment field. And the post-treatment field in the US, there are mainly three questions where the so-called biochemical recurrence is the most important for the doctor. He or she wants to know what is the risk of BCR, or biochemical recurrence. The sooner he gets that, or he or she gets that information, the better it is. So as a summary, you can say that to the left of this bar, pre-treatment decision, our focus is on the payers, because the payers, they have no interest in over-treatment of prostate cancer patients, because it's expensive. And definitely the patient has zero interest in over-treatment. Also, if we then move over to the right-hand side of this treatment bar, or whatever I should call it, the focus will more be on the clinician. So what we have found out is that there actually are hidden assets in our company. And as mentioned, the products we will develop, they are based on already completed investments in R&D. And the first study is finalized and will be presented as early as in March 2026. And we are focusing on biochemical recurrence, simply because that is the largest part of the market. And it is interesting, the synergies are obvious, and that will help us with faster market launches to significant lower costs as we utilize the experience we already have gained. And as you can see to the right on this slide, again, USA will be our main focus. The estimated market size is around $1 billion annually, also for this part of the market, where USA is super dominant compared to Europe. And again, Medicare and other payers, they have already established reimbursement for these kind of indications. What also is interesting is that we will not develop one product, we will develop more products. So we will go from being a one product company to a multi-product company, which is natural for many companies in our field. And as mentioned to the top left of this screen, biochemical recurrence is the most important one. That's where we have the first data, very good data, by the way. And then we will move on to also be able to answer other types of clinical questions that are so important to the clinician. Should we use radiation for this patient, or should we use hormone therapy for this patient? Or should we use radiation and hormone therapy as a combination for this patient? And lately, we have actually been approached by two separate pharmaceutical companies that want to investigate if Prostatype or Prostatype technology can help them by developing a so-called companion diagnostic. And looking at the hormone therapy market, which these companies are active within, companion diagnostics is of interest, obviously. And that is interesting to us because it brings significant commercial opportunities as well. And the product might not be called Prostatype. It might be sold. We really don't. We don't know yet. But we are in discussions of entering clinical studies in association with not necessarily one of the companies on this slide, but it could also be one of the companies on this slide. So all the investments we have made over the years is actually starting to pay off really nicely. So I have no promises at this stage, but I would like to inform you of the opportunities that lies ahead of Prostatype Genomics. So as a summary, it's fair to say that we have a comprehensive platform which will create additional growth as well. To the left here, when it comes to Prostatype Genomics, as mentioned, we are in a position where the technical risk is gone. It is Prostatype is regulatory approved, commercially launched in Europe and US. We have taken the major investments already. It's a very well documented product. More than 3,000 patients have participated in clinical studies. And the market is attractive. The gross margins we are working with are well in line with, or even stronger than a pharmaceutical. And sales are going on in Europe and US. We are now waiting for our Medicare approval before we really push the green button. So I think it's an excellent opportunity in timing, from a timing point of view, if you would be interested in investing in Prostatype Genomics. And to what I just mentioned, when it comes to the expansion of product portfolio, again, we will utilize the investments we already have made. There are significant synergies, not only from a scientific point of view, but also from a regulatory and commercial point of view. And as mentioned, there are interesting commercial opportunities with the companion diagnostic track. So that's what I had. I will leave you with this slide before sorry, we have questions, of course, but I would just like to comment this wonderful slide from the City Hall in Stockholm, where the Nobel banquet or dinner were held yesterday after the Nobel Prize ceremony. So this is not the view from our office, believe me, but still, I think it's a nice picture. So there are questions coming in here, and one of them is a very good question. What are our 2026 milestones, and will we need to raise capital in 2026? Our main milestone, to answer the question, is, of course, to launch Prostatype in the USA, combined with expanding the clinical footprint when it comes to the post-treatment area. Initially, we will initiate, not complete, but we will initiate 2 more studies in the US during next year. And we have developed a sales budget for 2026. So our milestones are successful launch of Prostatype in the US. And yes, we will need to raise capital in 2026. Not a huge amount, well, depending on how you define a huge amount, but we believe that around $5 million is what we need before we break even. And then I have another very good question. What is the timeline for full US commercial launch? Yes, that is a very, very good question, which I also wonder. It all depends on the Medicare approval. As mentioned, we have now been in discussions with Medicare for 1 year. That's what it usually takes for these kind of products before you get approved. So I believe, it's only a guess from my side, but I would guess that we launch during Q1 next year. In other words, my take is that we are very close to an approval. There's another question here I can see now from which is it's a similar question actually. Where does the Medicare reimbursement process stand, and what milestones remain for nationwide coverage? Well, really, there are no milestones that are remaining. The process is like this, that we send in an application, which we did 1 year ago. Medicare comes back with questions. We respond to those questions. Medicare comes back with additional questions, and we respond to those questions. And as mentioned earlier today, I had a great meeting with Medicare. We had a great meeting with Medicare yesterday. And as mentioned 1 minute ago, I think we will launch during Q1. It's not a promise from my side, but I have no reasons to believe anything else. So that's some of the questions I have received. I think the time is out. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You have the contact details on the screen. It would be fantastic to hear from you again. So again, thank you so much for your attention. Looking forward to hear from you in the future, and have a nice day.